think today we have a message of the heart. And more specific, we have a message that sort of describes Peter's heart. And it's a whole process of what his heart is going through in a particular moment. In one moment, he's got this rejoicing attitude of proclaiming the Messiah, and in the next moment, there's sort of like this trembling, this stress, this fear that comes as he hears Jesus describe his own destiny of suffering, of ridicule, and finally of murder. And so everything's shifting. He's saying, well, you're the Messiah. And then he gets this message of what a Messiah might look like. And I want us to put us back into the setting. Remember, we're in Caesarea Philippi. Remember, Jesus had gone to the other side, and now he's from Jewish territory into Gentile territory. Now he's right on the cusp. He's right on the cusp in the city, this capital city built by Herod called Caesarea Philippi. And it's a place that sits between the two worlds, the Gentile world and the Jewish world. And he's walking with the disciples, and when he's walking with the disciples, and he's had this conflict, he's been to both sides, and then he asks everybody, well, who are people saying that I am? And then he gets a bunch of positive responses, but then he pushes the envelope and pushes it right at his disciples and says, well, who do you say? Who do you say that I am? Right? And so he asks them directly, but who do you say? And Peter responds, declaring Jesus the Messiah, the Son of the living God. I'm Jesus. You are the Messiah. You are the Son of the living God. Well, you got to be wondering, we all have God talk, right? Well, we all talk God in our lives in one way or another. But what, in your own words, makes God, makes Jesus, makes the divine alive? Son of the living God. What in your world makes God alive? Jackie?
Love.
Love makes God feel alive in our lives.
And faith.
Sometimes faith makes, and when we just have to hold on. It's approachable. There.
I feel the Spirit deeply sometimes listening to music.
Sometimes music will just raise up the divine within us, right? Sometimes community can do that. I'm sorry.
Nature.
And nature sometimes can do that. Yeah.
It's the Holy Spirit.
The Holy Spirit can make God feel alive in our lives. Okay, so we have this sense. I just want you to hold on to this sense of what it means to have a living God within us. Because there's something incredible, right? There's something incredible about recognizing that truth. That truth, somehow the divine is in us. Somehow the divine is wanting to be a part of us. There's some incredible big truth about that. It's kind of like saying, I love you. Right? It's kind of like saying, I love you to the one that's deepest to your heart. It's a powerful, powerful phrase. And it's a big, big truth. And so it comes. And so Peter, just outside of Caesarea Philippi, makes the confession of his heart. He's brimming over with insight. He begins to sing. And then his heart just fills with disappointment. His heart just fills with disappointment. Something that I imagine just isn't as it was meant to be. Something that I imagine just wasn't as meant. And we could say it's easy that we could say that Peter's heart breaks because Jesus says, "Get behind me, Satan." Right? And he just received these really harsh words. We could say that. We could say that he just received these really harsh words, and so he's filled with disappointment. I mean, think about it. When we receive harsh words from someone we love, generally, how would you describe your reaction? There's hurt, deflated, disappointment, shock. Yeah, right? These things happen to us. These things happen to us. But now here's the flip side of it. When the harsh words are coming from our mouths, when the harsh words are coming from our mouths, where is that usually coming from within us?
Place of hurt.
A place of hurt?
Fear.
A place of fear?
Anger.
A place of anger?
Prejudice.
Sometimes it's prejudice. Yeah. You see, there's two sides to that, isn't there? There's two sides of that, right? And I want us to listen carefully to Matthew's story. I want us to listen carefully to Matthew's story. Because Peter just declares him the Messiah, and then it goes like this. And he sternly warned them not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah. He sternly warned them not to tell anyone he was the Messiah. And from that time on, Jesus began to show them that the Son of Man must undergo great suffering at the hands of the elders, the chief priests, the scribes, and in the end be killed by the Romans. And he began to show them these things. Then on the third day he would be raised. So here's where the distress comes. Here's where the distress comes. And the disappointment of the other. Right? Here's where the distress comes. Peter's heart begins to tremble. And he confesses Jesus, and Jesus orders him to keep his mouth shut. To keep his mouth shut. Don't tell anybody about this. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. The greatest news ever, and they're supposed to keep their mouth shut. That's where it begins to splinter, right? Peter's life begins to splinter. It's like a crack in the windshield. It just keeps on growing. It just keeps on growing, right? He's going, what? What? What do you mean? You got to suffer. What do you mean you got to be killed? What do you mean? This is not my vision of Messiah. That's not what I'm confessing to you, Jesus. Don't you get it? That's what I'm saying. What do you mean suffering? What do you mean being killed? What do you mean? I mean, he gets so caught up in it, he can't remember the third day business. Right? But he goes, because he has preconceived notions. He's got preconceived notions of the Messiah, right? I mean, no wonder he rebukes him. This is not my view of the Messiah. My Messiah will not suffer. My Messiah will not die. My Messiah is going to lead me right straight out of Roman oppression and into a new way of living, just like King David, just like Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt. This is a Messiah. Come on. You need to be a Moses. You need to be a David. What's the suffering and being killed business? Right? I mean, he expects the Messiah to be the descendant of the mighty king. That's what he expects. He expects that they will destroy the Romans and restore the kingdom of David as they once knew it. That's what he wants. And let me ask you this, are we any different in what we expect from our rulers, our leaders? Are we any different? I see this. I see this. I mean, maybe we're not looking for Moses, maybe we're not looking for David today. But we still want a strong God, don't we? Yeah, I mean, we want a God that pumps some iron. Wouldn't you say? You know, strong, buff, you know. Could make the NFL. Right? Isn't that right? Or the NHL. Or the MLB. Right? That's what we want. Am I like driving that ball 1,000 miles off to the left? I mean, are we any different than Peter? Seriously. Don't we want power and might? Don't we want success? I mean, I remember in high school. That's what it is. Right? You're out there wrestling and the cheerleaders are doing this, you're going, this is goofy. This is goofy. I'm getting my head smashed in the mat and they're up going, are you serious? But that's the kind of God we want, right? Yes, you. C-C-E-S-S.
Somebody wrote a book a few years ago about Christ would come back. These days he would be a defensive tackle.
He'd be a defensive tackle. I wonder if we're all the quarterbacks. I mean, right? That's how it goes, right? Of course we want a powerful God, right? Of course we want success. Of course we want to think that blessings, right? Blessings are, wealth, or blessings are good health. And they are. They are. But it's not who God is. Right? At least not by Jesus. Am I right? I mean, really, how many times do we just look really closely at Jesus, born to illiterate carpenters, born to a woman who was pregnant out of wedlock? Right? I mean, already the scorecard's going down. Come on. Think about it. His parents can't read or write, dumb poor people. Right? His mother got pregnant before she was married. I mean, who was that? This is the guy who comes, blessed are the poor. He doesn't come saying, blessed are the Bill Gates of life. He doesn't come saying that. He comes saying, blessed are the poor, right? Blessed are the least in this world, for they shall inherit the kingdom of God. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are the weak. Blessed are those that God chooses to find solidarity with because they're so close to death, and we have a living God who wants to make sure they, in some part of their days and lives, have a word of life. Those who have life and live it abundantly, they don't care. But the weak and the meek and the lowly know their need of life because they're right on the edge of death. And ask anybody who's sick. Ask anybody who's really battling a serious disease. They'll tell you the same thing. Life is precious. Life is precious. It has nothing to do with my bank account. It has nothing to do with anything else. All of a sudden, life is about relationship. Life is about love. Life is about things bigger than what this world could ever provide. That's where he goes. That's where Jesus goes. Right? It's not initially the Messiah that Peter longs for or desires. Somebody who will meet us in our own weakness. Somebody who will meet us in our own pain. Right? That's not exactly how it's, but in the end he follows. In the end he follows, right? Jesus proclaims a kingdom that is the inverse of our world. I don't know how else to say it. I don't know how else to say it. Right? I mean, how many of us really like to recognize that we're wounded? how many of us really like to say we hunger for something bigger than ourselves? How many of us say we really want that over the illusion of success? Somebody to meet me where I'm really hurting. Somebody to meet me where I'm really in pain. Somebody to meet me where I'm really hungry. I'm really, do you want somebody to meet you there? Or do you want somebody to meet you with them? Yes, yes. Where do you want somebody to meet you? Because Jesus is saying, this is where I meet you. I'm not going to meet you like some great warrior. I'm not going to meet you like some great king. I'm not going to meet you like some great leader who needs his serfdom to serve him or her. I'm going to meet you where you're hurting. I'm going to meet you in pain. I'm going to meet you in suffering. As a matter of fact, I'll be killed for doing this. But on the third day, you will encounter the living God. Because you'll realize that through this spirit of life, this man